Okay, we hear the term the cloud thrown around all the time, right? It's where your photos live, where your emails are, where your movies come from. But what is it? I mean, where is this thing really? Well, in the next few minutes, we're going to pull back the curtain on one of the most important and maybe most misunderstood ideas in all of modern tech.
So let's just start with this. When you save a file to, say, Dropbox or a photo to Google Photos, where does it actually go? It kind of feels like it just floats up into the sky somewhere. The reality, though, is a whole lot more down to earth. You know, the simplest way to think about the cloud is that it's just a metaphor. It's not a physical thing. At its core, the big idea is this. You are essentially just using someone else's computer. Your stuff, your apps, your data, it's not on your device's hard drive anymore. It's on some super powerful server, somewhere else in the world, that you're tapping into over the internet.
And this visual really nails it. See, on the left, that's the old way of doing things. Everything, your programs, your files, the whole shebang is right there with you, on your machine. But on the right, that's the cloud model. All that heavy lifting is shifted over the internet to these massive remote data centers. All you need is a connection to get to it.
But you know, the cloud didn't just appear overnight. It's actually the end result of a bunch of big ideas in computing that have been evolving for decades. So let's take a super quick look at how we got here.
It really started with concepts like grid computing, which was all about linking computers together to create a kind of virtual supercomputer. Then came utility computing, and this was a huge idea. What if you could pay for computing power just like you pay for electricity? Just pay for what you use. From there, we got software as a service, or SaaS, which was totally revolutionary. You'd subscribe to apps online instead of buying a CD-ROM. Each of these ideas was a critical stepping stone to what we now just call the cloud.
So, what officially makes something cloud computing? I mean, there's got to be a definition, right? Well, to clear things up, the U.S. National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST for short, came up with a really helpful framework. It breaks it all down into what's known as the 5-4-3 principles. Think of them as the official rules of the game.
So, first up in this 5-4-3 model are the 5 essential characteristics. You can think of these as the non-negotiables. For any service to truly be called a cloud service, it has to check all 5 of these boxes.
And this diagram lays them all out. These are the 5 core ideas that make the cloud, well, the cloud. We've got on-demand self-service, broad network access, resource pooling, rapid elasticity, and measured service. They all have to work together. So let's quickly break down what each one actually means.
Okay, let's run through them. On-demand self-service basically means you can get computing power instantly, automatically, without having to call someone up and ask for it. Broad network access is simple. You can get to it from your phone, your tablet, your laptop, anything with a connection. Resource pooling is kind of the provider's magic trick. They serve tons of customers from the same shared pool of hardware. Rapid elasticity is super important. It lets a service scale way up for huge demand, like a streaming service on premiere night, and then scale right back down. And finally, measured service, just like we talked about, means you only pay for what you actually use.
All right, next up in our 5-4-3 framework are the 4 different ways a cloud can be deployed. And this is really all about who owns the gear and who gets to use it.
So a public cloud is what most of us use every day. Services from Amazon, Google, Microsoft that are open to anybody. A private cloud is the exact opposite. It's built for just one single company, giving them total control. A community cloud is a little different. It's shared by a few organizations that have similar goals, like, say, a group of universities sharing a research platform. And then a hybrid cloud just mixes and matches these, letting a company keep its super sensitive data on its own private cloud while using the public cloud for everything else.
And finally, we get to the 3 in our 5-4-3 model, the 3 service models. Now, this might be the most important part for us as users because it defines what kind of service you're actually getting.
I like to think of these 3 models as a menu of options. It ranges from getting a fully cooked meal delivered to your door to just renting the kitchen and all its appliances to cook for yourself. Let's see what's on offer.
First up is software as a service, or SaaS. And this is the one you're most familiar with for sure. The provider gives you a finished, ready-to-use application that you just access through your web browser. You don't manage a thing, you just use it.
Seriously, you use SaaS all the time. Every time you check Gmail or you edit a document in Office 365 or save a file to Dropbox, you're using a SaaS application. The provider handles absolutely everything behind the scenes.
Okay, one level down from that, we have Platform as a Service, or PaaS. This one's really for the developers, the builders. Instead of a finished app, the provider gives you a whole platform, the operating system, databases, all the tools to build and run your own applications. You manage your app, and they manage all the underlying stuff.
So, when you hear names like Microsoft Azure or Google App Engine, think of them like powerful workshops. They're places where developers can go to build, test, and launch their software without ever having to worry about setting up or maintaining the servers themselves.
And at the very bottom, the foundation of it all, we have Infrastructure as a Service, or IaaS. With IaaS, you're basically just renting the raw computing hardware, virtual servers, raw storage, the networking components. It's the most flexible and powerful model, but it also means you have to manage the most yourself.
The big players here, companies like Amazon Web Services, AWS, they're the absolute titans of IaaS. They provide the fundamental building blocks that power a huge chunk of the internet we use every day, from tiny startups to massive companies like Netflix.
And this chart puts it all together perfectly. See, on the far left, on-premises. That's the old school way, where you manage everything in blue. Now watch what happens as we move to the cloud. With IaaS, the provider takes over those bottom layers, the physical hardware. With PaaS, they manage even more, all the way up through the operating system. You just handle your app. And finally, with SaaS, on the far right, the provider manages everything. It's the perfect way to see that trade-off between control and convenience.
So, after all that, what's the final verdict here? I mean, is the cloud worth it? The move to the cloud involves some really clear trade-offs, so let's weigh the good against the bad.
The benefits are pretty incredible. You can get to your stuff from anywhere, you can scale up or down in an instant, and you avoid spending a ton of money on hardware up front. But there's another side. You're completely dependent on having an internet connection. You're putting a lot of trust in a third party with your security, and you absolutely give up a significant amount of control over your own data.
For so many businesses, the most crucial point is captured perfectly in this quote. Instead of a huge capital expenditure, buying a warehouse full of expensive servers, you move to a predictable operational expenditure, a monthly bill. And that financial flexibility is one of the single biggest reasons everyone is moving to the cloud. And that leaves us with one final, really critical question to think about. The shift to the cloud is happening. It's undeniable, and it offers us incredible convenience and power. But as we hand over more and more of our digital lives to these giant providers, it's really worth asking, what do we give up in control? That's the central bargain of the cloud age, and it's something we're all going to be navigating for years to come. Thanks for joining me on this explainer.